Well, guys, we are in the middle of arguably the best Women's World Cup competition we have seen to date, but that does raise the question, should we continue to expand the Women's World Cup format moving forward in the future? Guys, Matty G back here with you on Football at Flags. Thanks so much for joining us as always, and let's get right into this episode. Now, before we start digging for answers, it's important to at least take a trip back down memory lane and see how far this competition has come since its inception in 91. As you can see, things started off with just 12 teams in those first two editions, but we've seen a 20-team expansion over the years through several different formats, including this tournament double in size from 2011 to present day in 2023. Now, it does look pretty concrete that 32 teams will also be the field for 2027, as over the next year or so, FIFA will continue to look for the host for that competition. So it does appear that 32 teams are probably set for the next cycle, but that does still leave the question open for 2031 and beyond. Will this format continue, or could we see expansion beyond 32 teams for the Women's World Cup down the road? Now, there is still plenty of work to be done before a host is announced next year for the 2027 cycle, which means, considering the amount of work still yet to be done, I guess there is always a possibility that FIFA could go back and look and see, is there any potential that we could expand the field beyond just 32 for the next time around? It does feel pretty concrete that we'll have 32 teams in it, but again, as you can see, the abbreviated calendar there to your right, there is still a lot of work for FIFA to do before we finally find a host for this 2027 cycle. As you can see, workshops, the submission of bids, on-site inspections, the evaluations being publicized, and then finally by next May the 17th in 2024, we should hopefully know who is going to host the 2027 edition, which of course in the next slide we will show you who all is being considered for that possibility. Now, these are the four different options being considered for the host of the 2027 edition, but the question remains, can these places, especially the ones that are not selected for this upcoming cycle, could they handle an expanded field down the line if it isn't considered in 2027? In my opinion, I certainly think so. Of course, we're already seeing Mexico, the United States, partner up with Canada to ensure that in the 2026 men's cycle coming up. But I think the idea of Belgium, Germany, and Netherlands all doing one together could for sure handle an expanded field down the road. We've seen Brazil put on some fantastic shows in the 1950 and 2014 editions of the Men's World Cup. I definitely have faith that they could do it. And while South Africa, for me, was one of the best competitions we've seen on the men's side in 2010, I'm not totally caught up in terms of the condition of all the infrastructure down there for the stadiums that were used for those games, or if they would look to possibly build new ones or use some that are maybe a bit smaller. But considering how phenomenal that World Cup was in 2010, it's certainly something that I think myself and many fans out there would love to see the men's game go back, or the women's game, with an opportunity of a 32-team field or even bigger group of teams being considered. So again, I think all of these potential options for 2027, or at least beyond if they aren't approved as the next bid host, are great options down the line for FIFA to use for 2031 or beyond. Now, I'm sure most of you saw through the thumbnail or the first slide of this episode, when we did talk about expansion, we had the number going from 32 to 48 teams. Biggest reason I put that in there was because that's what the men are expanding to. And for me, I think that's the best format possible if you are to expand the field for the women's game as well. I just like the idea of keeping groups of 4, which means that the men will now have 12 groups of 4 instead of 8. And they're adding an extra round in the knockout stages. So instead of starting at a round of 16, you'll start at a round of 32 for that single elimination process. I know that's possibly a big jump for the women, especially when people have argued over the years, would it stay competitive as they continue to add on with different formats. But if you take a look here at the picture right now, if you haven't already counted, only 44 nations have ever qualified for a women's competition, which means if they were to expand the field to 48 possibly down the road, you would at least have to have 4 debutantes making their first time appearances at a minimum. That's if, again, everybody on this screen already qualified. So again, that's a great opportunity for a lot of new nations to possibly come in and make a debut appearance for themselves as well. And as for it being competitive, well, I'll show you why I think the expansion idea is good. Let's talk about staying competitive. Let's look at the 8 teams who made their debuts in this 2023 Women's World Cup. The Philippines get not only their first goal, but their first ever victory against New Zealand in their second group stage game. Katie McCabe gives Ireland their first ever goal against Canada, and they secure their first point ever against Nigeria. Zambia go on to get their first ever victory and first goal against Costa Rica in a 3-1 win. Haiti, while they don't pick up any points in the group stage, fought valiantly against England, Denmark, and China. As for Portugal, they go on to get their first goal and their first win against Vietnam, and were very close to sending the two-time defending champions, the United States, home in their group stage finale. Vietnam, while they don't pick up any points, again fought incredibly hard in their 3 group stage games. As for Panama, they get their first ever goal and then go on to bag 3 against France in a 9-goal thriller. And then last but not least, certainly for Morocco, they go on to score their first ever goal and then collect 2 wins, which would secure their first ever knockout appearance, defeating Colombia and South Korea while sending the number 2 ranked team in the world, Germany, home. So again, I think the debutants certainly helped make a case for why this field should continue to expand. They were incredibly competitive across the board, with everybody really just giving it their all, and some making some fascinating history as well for these first timers. And again, while Haiti and Vietnam didn't pick up any points in the group stage, and there were some difficult results like Morocco getting beat 6-0 and Vietnam getting beat 7-0, again, these ladies put on fantastic performances and really fought hard against some of the best in the world. And I know that they, I'm sure, enjoyed every minute that they got to be on the world stage and would give anything to be back in 2027 and hopefully beyond. As for those who might think that we're only seeing the same teams go through to the knockout stages and make deep runs in this competition, well, look no further than what's happened in this 2023 World Cup. The defending gold medalist, Canada, who everybody, I think many expected to get through the group stage with Australia in that group, wind up exiting in the group stages. Nigeria takes that spot and advances to the round of 16. China, for the first time ever, every single time they've qualified for the Women's World Cup, they've advanced to the knockout stage. They failed to do so this time, as Denmark are the team that joins England, making it to the round of 16. The United States, 4-time world champions of this competition, eliminated in the round of 16. They have never finished outside the top 3, a podium finish every single time they've been in a Women's World Cup. This time, they don't even make it to a quarterfinal. Top 10 team in Brazil winds up exiting in the group stage as well. Then we see just the 3rd ever CONCACAF nation to reach the round of 16 besides the United States and Canada, the Reggae Girls from Jamaica, putting on some fantastic performances to get to the final stage in the round of 16. As for South Africa, they get their first win and make their round of 16 debut as well, putting up a heck of a fight against the Netherlands. And then as for Germany, like we talked about in the last slide, the 2nd best team in the world for the first time ever getting knocked out in the group stage. They have always made the knockout stages every time they've qualified, and they have failed to do so this time around. Keep in mind as well, Japan are the last remaining former champion in this competition. So out of the 8 quarterfinalists, we only have 1 former champion left, which means, again, if they don't get the job done, we're going to have our 5th ever World Cup winner, which again, I think is just a great showing of how this game is expanding and how competitive it's becoming on the women's side all across the globe. So guys, with all that being said, I'll leave you with this. Should the Women's World Cup expand down the road? Yes or no? I think you all understand pretty much my answer to this question. It's absolutely yes. There are so many different reasons, I think, why it should continue to expand, whether we're talking about prize money, the opportunity for better resources for federations, the funding and the attention that it could help seek out for more of these federations. Again, we only have 188 women's national teams across the globe. The men are over 200. And again, 188 is still a great number, but that means there are still nations out there that don't have a women's federation. And the opportunity to hopefully continue to build the game in different parts of the globe, continue to allow more teams through different continents, better opportunities to hopefully make it to a Women's World Cup, I think is certainly something that we should continue to strive for. Again, I don't know if they'll go straight for possibly a 48-team field, or if they might look to expand it through smaller increments with it's like maybe 36, 40, 44, whatever. But for me, yes, 100%. I think they should expand the field down the road. Who knows if it'll happen in 2027, but hopefully for sure in 2031, we could see an expanded field and beyond. But again, guys, let me know down in the comments what you're thinking, any ideas you have, any concerns, and just whether overall your answer to this question is yes or no. Please let me know down in the comments. Love to see what you guys have to say about it. With that being said, guys, I hope you all have a blessed day. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Turn on those alerts for more updated content in the near future. And I hope you guys enjoy these quarterfinal matchups for the Women's World Cup coming up soon. With that being said, guys, take care. See ya.